Squirrels! So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and we have Nami. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Nami. And Nami serves the sea. Let's go!
That the tide will bring. I won't let my home be...
Nami is a 3-mana 2/3 Bilgewater champion with Attune. When you cast a spell, grant 1 attack to the weakest other ally that isn't immobile. Obviously, I guess that makes some sense that you don't want to give like your kegs extra attack. I guess that's kind of the point here with Bilgewater. And you've gained 7+ spell mana this game. You've gained 7+ spell mana this game, so I guess that counts for obviously Attune. And I guess that means that, you know, if you just save the spell mana that you didn't have before, but then if you use that spell mana, I guess it will gain again. So 7+ spell mana this game, and it isn't I've seen, so that seems like it's pretty doable. And when you cast a spell, granting an extra attack to the weakest other ally that isn't immobile, is there some, like this could very much fit in kind of the first thing that's come to my mind is kind of like an elusive pranks deck with Fizz. You know, where you're playing like the pranks and you're giving things like Fizz or like other, you know, kelp maidens or something like that. They're getting extra attack. And you know, you get spell mana, and so you're giving them attack, you're using prank, you're buffing them up as well at the same time. So it seems like a pretty good Fizz synergy, which seems nice because Fizz has always felt a bit out of place in Bilgewater. So I was kind of glad, 1, that he became dual region. But 2, this seems like an actual synergy for Fizz, which is also quite nice.
Swallowed by darkness. My people are counting on me.
So it seems like they agree that that's what they want.
For the tribe!
I'll make corpses
Not if you drown first, brute. Rise with the surf.
Oh, what was that? A 7-mana Withering Wail.
Rolling tides. Heed my call.
We'll read it at the end.
There's a pair of gills I'm happy to see. Fizz and Nami, rulers of the sea. I am the tide caller. I will drive back the darkness.
A decent level up animation. So Nami becomes a 3-mana 3/4. When you cast a spell, grant 2/1 to the weakest other ally. That's pretty good. When you cast any spell, man. I mean, I'm glad that it's the weakest ally, because that means that if you've got Eye of the Dragon and Lee Sin down, it's gonna target Eye of the Dragon first. So I'm very glad about that, but I'm not sure in Bilgewater. You know, Lee Sin, thankfully, probably has better things to do, but thankfully Fizz probably doesn't, and this fits really well with Fizz. And as I said, I didn't think the level up was like that hard to do. You know, you've got like Amy will probably be on like 3, like she could be on 3 already by the time she like comes down. And then, you know, then you can start playing spells. Seems very possible, this. I kind of like this. This is a pretty cool design.
Commence operation. We cover Moonstone. Counting on you, Admiral. Wash away.
Ooh.
Ride the surging tide.
Yeah, buff that Fizz. That's what Fizz wants.
I can't back down.
Kill them, Fizz.
Who's on top of the
Funny
bounty
boy today.
Let the tide carry you.
I'll show him pain.
Or Fizz.
Who's hungry?
How did he get to an 8/5? What?
To be swept away.
Oh, wow. Oh my god, this is going to be toxic to play against. Is that healing in Bilgewater? Interesting.
Fry. Winner, winner,
Yeah, you really needed that.
my loved ones will be safe a while
God, you weren't winning without that shell game. So here's a bunch of cards, but we'll go to Mobalytics to see what is going on with all of the cards. And we have a lot of cards today to talk about. Okay, so let's talk about some of these cards. Now, these first 4 cards I think were revealed yesterday, but as part of the seasonal tournament thing. But obviously, we will talk about them now because I haven't had a chance to talk about them. So we have the Lady of Blood, which is a 4-mana 2/4. When you discard a non-fleeting unit, create a fleeting copy of it in hand. Now, some of you are going to see the problem with this card, and that's that it's a 4-mana 2/4 with an effect that is kind of like okay. Like it's okay, but it's nothing special, and there's no like clear synergy that I can think of that it's like, I mean, obviously like Scion makes sense, right? But like it's okay, you know, and the fleeting copy I guess we'll discard, so it does work with some of Scion's things, but I think you'll probably have better things to do, and the 2/4 stat line like doesn't really fit Scion because obviously you want big stat lines, but we shall see. If Scion turns out to be difficult to level, then maybe this will make the cut. Curious Shellfolk is a Bandle City card. When you pick a card from randomly selected options, create a copy in hand and reduce its cost by 1. If this card wasn't 6 mana, it'd be really good, but it is 6 mana, so it's not that good because at this point in the game, like, you know, like this effect is just too slow. You know, it's kind of got the Arrow the Tracker kind of syndrome where it's kind of like, yeah, you're starting this on turn 6 though. So like, you know. But there could be some synergies with like Targon you could do maybe. Tail Cloak Matriarch is a 5-mana 4/5 Ionian card. Each round, the first time you recall a follower, summon an exact ephemeral copy of it. Now, one thing that I noted about this card, and other people did as well, this is not just your own followers. This is also their followers. So this, you know, kind of means recall your things. You know, there's no real need you'd want to have to give your opponent an ephemeral copy of certain things. But obviously anything with good summon effects, basically anytime you recall them will go off twice. So for instance, you recall a Shadow Assassin, that means that you draw another card as well. And in, you know, Ionia, this kind of thing makes sense because Ionia can somewhat stall out the game. And, you know, it's possible that this could be a clue for future archetypes, potentially, but I don't think it will quite come together right now. And we have Mirror Image, which is another Bandle City card, an 8-mana 4/7. When you play a created follower, summon an exact copy. When you play a created spell, cast it again on the same targets. So, again, this is 8 mana. So, basically, if 8 mana plus cards aren't winning the game, like, either this or next turn, like, pretty much guaranteed, then, you know, probably isn't going to see that much play. So, Nami, obviously, we've seen. So, we have Nami's Ebb, which I guess is Nami's spell, which is deal 2 randomly to an enemy or the enemy nexus and create a flow in hand. So, a 2-mana can go face. So, I guess kind of like make it rain, right? But it's only like one thing. So it can always go face, but it could also hit your opponent, and you create a flow in hand. So what is flow? Flow is a burst speed fleeting spell. Heal an ally or your nexus 2 and create an ebb and flow in hand. So ebb and flow is a 2-mana fast speed fleeting spell. Deal 2 randomly to an enemy or the enemy nexus and heal an ally or your nexus 2. So I'm guessing you choose which, you know, the heal side of it, but obviously the deal 2 is random. So obviously to play like all of these, you need 6 mana. But what's good about these, I think, is that Ebb is perfectly fine on its own. You know, like the randomness isn't great. It's okay, but it's not terrible. If you get off Ebb and Flow, then that's great. If you get off Ebb and Flow and Ebb and Flow, then, you know, that's really good. And you would have played 3 spells. Like, I think Fizz is the obvious, like, you know, they're both fish. I think that, you know, they've gone, you know, some of the things they've, you know, like, how do we, Pike and Rek'Sai, right? Oh, they're both these lurkers. They're both like, you know, they could both kill things. They're both these monster type things. What if we make them synergize together? Clearly with Fizz and Nami here, they've gone, well, they're both fish. So what if we make them synergize together? Is what I think has gone on here. Yeah, I mean, will you main deck Ebb? We'll have to probably see. It's possible. It's possible. It's not terrible, and it's a pretty good champion spell, I think. So we have Abyssal Guard, which is a 4-mana 2/3 fearsome. When you cast a spell, give me 2 extra attack this round. Now, generally, like, you know, we've seen it with Coastal Defender as well. You know, we had that kind of, what is that, like a 4-mana 2/6, I think. Now, casting a spell is somewhat easier than summoning a unit, I guess. But I think, again, you can't have these stat lines that kind of rely on other things. Like a 4-mana 2/3, like you're coming down as a 4-mana 2/3. And what if you don't have spell mana, right? Then you've just got a 4-mana 2/3 that's doing nothing that turn. And what if you need to block that turn? You know, this is kind of the problem with these kind of cards. If it was Grant, obviously, it would be a good card. But it isn't, so it's not. Avatar of the Tides is a 6-mana 4/5 Bilgewater card again. If you would get a mana gem, instead refill your spell mana. When you cast a spell, create in hand a random spell that costs 3 or less. Give it fleeting. Well, hold on a second here. When you cast a spell, create in hand a random spell that costs 3 or less and give it fleeting. Okay, that makes sense. If you would get a mana gem, instead refill your spell mana. This is such a cool card. Oh my god, this is such a cool card. In a way, like if you have a deck that is just like small spells, that is just like all small, this is like getting the spell mana. If you have a lot of small spells, you're essentially getting extra mana than your opponent is. You know, that first turn when they go up to 7, well, you've gone up to 9, essentially. You know, essentially what you want is, of course, to have no mana. Like, you play this on 6, you've got no mana left for next turn. They've got, like, you know, assume they're the same. You know, they've got 7 mana, you've got 9. You know, they play out their mana, let's say. You've got 9 again. You know, and they still have, you know, let's say 8 at that point, if they've played all their mana. And you're creating cards as well. Now, they are random, and it is completely random as well. It's not even from your regions, because it doesn't say it. You get a completely random spell, you give it fleeting, but obviously you've got the mana, hopefully, to do that. I mean, I have no idea if this is good, but there's some crazy combos that I'm sure you can pull this off. I'm not sure if it goes in this deck necessarily. It could do as a kind of weird finisher. It actually could. I wouldn't be shocked. This seems like a really cool card at the very least, that I think you can do some crazy things with. I'm sure you probably can. But I have no idea if it's like, it's good enough to see some play, I think, because it gives you that advantage early on. And it gives you extra cards as well. So if you're only playing small stuff, yeah, this seems pretty decent. Fleet Admiral Shelley is a 5-mana 3/3. For every 2 spells you play in a round, grant other allies +1/+1. It has elusive and attune itself. Wow. For every 2 spells you play in a round, grant other allies +1/+1. So I guess you kind of want spells like Ebb that kind of give you other spells to play as well. Not sure how many of them are actually in the game already. I'm sure there's some. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. Again, with elusive, like this is obvious. Like this is kind of what they're going for. And this is what I like about this archetype is, you know, they've gone. This needs elusive to be good. Let's give it elusive. This whole kind of archetype is kind of like, yeah, this is probably going to be with an elusive deck. So they've kind of, you know, lent into that, which, you know, probably makes it viable where I don't think it would have been otherwise. Journeying Sandhopper is a simple 3-mana 4/3 attune. Because this is 3 mana, I don't think you'll end up playing it. Just because, you know, Nami's the 3 mana card probably for this. I mean, maybe you will, but I think, again, you'll probably have something better, I would hope. But maybe you won't. When I'm summoned, if you cast a spell this round, grant me elusive. Oh my god. This card's disgusting. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the old, what's it called? The 2-mana one. The 2-mana Navori Conspirator. This reminds me of old Navori Conspirator, which was a 3/2. back early in the day, and you used to be able to I mean, this was disgusting what you could do back in the day. Inspiring Mentor used to give something +1/+1. So you'd play Inspiring Mentor on turn 1, buff your Navori Conspirator, play your turn 2 4/3 elusive, and then get Inspiring Mentor back to buff another elusive as well. Now obviously this isn't as busted as that was, and that was in a time when that wasn't as good removal. So you can understand how crazy that little combo was, but this is still a good card. Like a 2-mana 3/2 elusive, like that, so easy to pull off. I mean, you know, you could play a bunch of things with like Octopus into this. It will give you it because the prank costs 1 mana. The Octopus has Attune. You know, you'll use that. Well done. This seems like just good. When I'm summoned, summon a random 1-cost follower. Pretty basic, pretty, you know, easy. But let's think, because this actually isn't a bad card. This is actually a good card. Do not be put off by the fact that this card has a 2/1 stat line. We've seen with Fading Icon, and some people didn't see it at first. Thankfully, I did. But House Spider is a really good card. And, you know, Fading Icon is kind of like Shadow Isle's slightly worse House Spider. But that still makes it a good card. Now, Mirai Warden is essentially Bilgewater's House Spider, where, you know, you have a 2-mana 2/1, but who knows? You could get something really good. You know, you could get a Crusty Codger, which is a 2/4, which would be insane. So yeah, this I think is a pretty good card, and this is the kind of card where if you're kind of like, I need a 2-drop in Bilgewater, this will be the card you go to. Mirai Great Mother, 4-mana 3/3. When I'm summoned, create 5 random 6+ cost spells in your deck and lower their cost to 3. When I'm summoned, create 5 random 6+ cost spells in your deck and lower their cost to 3? What? What 6+ cost spells are there, boys? Because normally you look at 6+ cost spells and you think, well, that's terrible. But would I play 3-mana Progress Day? Oh, it's in your deck. Oh my god, thank god. Oh my god. I thought this was in hand. I thought they just printed the craziest card that I had ever seen. Okay, thank god it's in your deck. Oh my god, thank god it's in your deck. Thank god. I was like, they've just made a card that gives you 5 cards in hand? Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, this is probably actually... Yeah, this probably isn't that good, to be honest. Yeah, this probably isn't that good. I don't think. If it was a 4/4, it probably would be okay, but as a 3/3, I don't think so. Oh my god, thank god. I almost had a heart attack. I almost had a heart attack looking at this card. Tidal Wave is a 3-mana spell, and again, it looks like this is going to create other things. So, deal 1 to 2 different randomly targeted enemies and create a crashing wave in your deck. Oh, deal 2 to 4 different randomly targeted enemies and create a colossal wave in your deck. Deal 4 to all enemies and the enemy nexus. So there's a couple problems with these cards. Slow. They all cost 3 mana. And they go in your deck. Randomly. Go in your deck. Anywhere in your deck. This could go to the bottom card of your deck. And you've paid 3 mana for this. I do kind of wish that this kind of effect would be like, you know, this one would be 1. Now, this one might be a bit too good at 1 mana. Like, I accept that. But, you know, I would prefer if this was like 1, this was 2, and this was 3. And, you know, they kind of had effects that were, you know, maybe worthy of being 1 and then 2. But then the third one is, like, insane. I kind of wish they would rather do that instead. Because I just don't think that this is quite good enough to see play. Yeah, so don't worry too much about that one. So let's go back. Now that we've seen all the cards, go back to Nami, see what we think. Essentially, as far as I can tell, what's going to be interesting about this archetype is figuring out how many spells to units you play. Fizz seems like the obvious combo. You know, what spells do you play, though? You know, the prank seems like, you know, the kind of direction you want to go. Pranks seems to fit this pretty well. You know, they're low-cost, cheap spells that kind of have an annoying effect for your opponent. Obviously, I think that was kind of the goal. You know, you have these attune units. You know, you have, you know, that kind of thing. And because that seems like how you're going to control them in this. Like, you know, that's how you're going to slow the game down, is by using your pranks. I think you might use Ebb and Flow and the like. That seems possible. I definitely want to build this. I definitely want to build an avatar of the Tides deck as well. It seems like a really cool archetype. So let's give some quick ratings. We'll go from the very start. Lady of Blood, as I said, unless Scion turns out to be really hard to level, I don't think the 2/4 stat line is going to be good enough. So I'm going to go for a 5, maybe a 4.5. Curious Shellfolk is 6 mana, which just makes this kind of thing, I think, impossible to play. So this is like a 3. Tailcloak Matriarch doesn't have the support right now, but it might do one day. And so I think this is probably like I mean, right now it's probably like a 4 or 5, but in the future it very easily could become like a 7, or an 8 even. Mirror Mage, again, just 8 mana, too slow, like a 3. Nami herself, I think, is pretty decent. She's a 3 mana 2/3, which isn't great. You know, you're gonna have to figure out how you're gonna survive against aggro. But I think the way you're going to do that is you're going to actually just play a lot of small units, you know, and block out if you have to. I think that that's going to be the way you survive aggro, but that's going to be an important thing to do for this kind of deck, because you're probably not going to have the biggest units that survive combat, and, you know, it's going to take a little while, you know, to sort of get going. This feels like a very snowbally deck. You know, once you've leveled up Nami and you're playing just like, you know, 5 spells around, that, you know, it can snowball out of control very quick, but you have to get to there first. So you're going to need to figure out how to survive. So I figured that Nami is probably like a decent card. You know, she's again a decent champion. I really love the design. So I'll give her like a 7. You know, decent. I don't think she's going to be top tier. But it's possible that some cool combos could come out of it, and maybe if the right, you know, set of cards comes out, that she could be very strong indeed. Ebb, I think, is a better champion spell than like on its own, but I think it's decent. I think it's like a 6.5. It's not terrible, but, you know, I do feel like you have to have the spell mana and also, you know, be able to play all of them to really feel like you've got much from it. And, you know, you might not have anything to heal, for instance. So, you know, like, there's going to be times when you have Ebb, but Flow literally is doing nothing to you. And you're paying maybe 2 mana to just get Ebb and Flow. You know, doesn't feel great. Abyssal Guard, as I said, I just don't believe in this kind of give effect. So this is like a 4. Avatar of the Tides, I think, is perhaps the craziest, most interesting card that I've seen in this entire set. And I don't know if it's good, but it's really interesting. So I'm gonna give this like a 7. Why not? Because I think I want it to be good. So it's a 7. Fleet Admiral Shelley, I think, could be pretty scary in the right list. Is still, you know, a 5 mana 3/3. You know, people will go like, oh, that's no good, but it has Attune and Elusive, and like if you're thinking of an Abyssal Eye, like often that will survive to hit you even as the 3/3 before it grows to a 6/6. And granted, your other allies, and in this deck in particular, you know, you probably will have the 2 spells to play, or at least you'll want to. You know, I think it's pretty decent. I think this is like a 7.5. Journeying Sandhopper, if you don't have a better option, you'll probably play it. But I think you probably, like, it's essentially like a 2.5 mana 4/3. You know, I think that's the best way to look at this card, which is okay. But then, you know, you compare like Patrol Wardens, you can also say is like a 2.5 mana 4/3. You know, that doesn't really see any play. So that's the kind of level that I put this on. Like, it's okay. You know, it's like a 6, like a 5.5. Let's go 5.5. Mirai Songstress, I think, is just a really good card. This is like an 8. Mirai Warden, I think, is like a really good card. This is like an 8. Yeah, I mean, anytime you get Krusty Carter off this, your opponent is going to rage. And I think that this could be the card that helps you survive the aggro. Mirai Great Mother, thank God. I thought this was like a 15 out of 10 at first. But thank God, I think this is more like a 5. Maybe even a 4.5. But I really did think that this was like a 15 out of 10 when I first read it. Thank God it's in your deck and not in your hand. And Tidal Wave, as I said, the slow speed and the fact that they're all 3 mana and you're paying like 9 mana to eventually like get all these effects off is just not quite worth it, I don't think. It's not terrible. I don't quite think it's main deckable. That's the level I'd put this at. So I'd put this at like a 5.5. Like just not quite missing the cut, but I could be a bit wrong and it could surprise me. And if there is some way to like, guarantee that you can find the crashing waves and the colossal waves, things like predict or like a ton of draw, then obviously it gets a bit better. But just on its own, unfortunately, I don't quite see it. But that is all the cards. A really interesting day. Really can't wait to build and play with this kind of list. It's going to be really annoying to play against, but we shall see. So thank you so much for watching, and everyone have a really nice day as we approach the final release day. So thank you all for watching again, and I'll see you tomorrow.